Okay, since the carburetor kit still hasn't arrived yet, it is en route. We'll do some other service work on it here. Give everything a little lubrication. So I'll have to start with the starter here. You got to put a little bit of a little dab of oil in there every so often. So we'll see if I can do this one-handed here. Maybe. There we go. This needs a little dab every so often to lubricate the bushing down in the bottom there. So there. Now we'll move on to the distributor. There's supposed to be a plug here, and you put in a grease zerk, but there's a grease zerk there to start with, so we'll just grease it and not worry about it. Let's see if I can. Let's see here. Let's see if I can do this while holding the camera. Okay, that's maybe better. There, I got that on. Now we'll give it one. Oh man, that was tough. Let's give it 2 pumps because I don't know if it went the first time. That was kind of a tough push. Hopefully it got in there. Oh, did you? Oh my goodness. It's not even tight. Hold on, technical difficulties. All right, there we go. I'm a little bit annoyed that I didn't know that the distributor was loose. So now I hope it's still somewhat in time. It should be close anyways. I suppose I'll have to futz with it after I get the carburetor back on again, which, son of a gun, but what do you do? So next, we got to pull this little plug out right here. This would be about the same. This would be about the same as what should be in the distributor, but it isn't. And we're going to put a zerk in there because you got a grease there so that you get grease into there, and there's a whole lot of nastiness in there. Focus. But I think for now at least I'm going to leave that stuff in there as a bit of a dam, but we'll take and now you don't want to stay on there. We'll take and put that on there, and I'll bring you back in a second here. Okay, now with the gun on there, focus. We'll pump until we see a little bit of grease squirt through there, and make sure it's full. of something decent anyways. That's mainly crap there. So hold on a second. Okay, I shot grease in the Zerk, but it got hard instead of just coming out around here. So instead of possibly blowing out a seal that I'm not aware of, I just pumped a little bit of grease right around the gears there for now. Maybe there's some hard grease packed in somewheres. I don't know, but maybe someday I'll have to take this apart anyways. But anyways, now we got to take, oh, of course, now it's stuck in there. Let's see. Now we got to take the Zerk out, for crying out loud. We got to take, there. Won't help that it's all greasy too. We got to take the grease, or the Zerk out. And we'll put the plug back in, just the way it's supposed to be. Because you're only supposed to grease this once in a great while. Come on. It looks like it's straight. There we go. That was just a little tough to turn. So, we'll put that back in. Normally on a B or a C with battery ignition, there would be an oil line going to the distributor, but this is either an aftermarket Delco distributor. It is Delco. I can see that from the tag there. It's hard to read, but I can see it. But either it's an aftermarket Delco distributor or it's off of a different Allis Chalmers that used the Delco instead of the Fairbanks distributor like this should have. The Fairbanks has an oil line that comes over to it and lubricates it with engine oil. But that being said, now we'll move on to the front axle. And there's going to be a Zerk here that needs grease. Oh my goodness, I can't do this with one hand. So there, we got that one. Now we got to do the one down there on the knee. And then we got to come to the other side. And it's kind of hard to see because I still got to wipe it off. But there's a Zerk here. There's one here, and there's one there that all have to get greased. There doesn't appear to be any on the pivot shaft here that I can see. Focus. Framing. Come on. There doesn't appear to be any Zerk there, so I'll probably just dribble a little bit of oil on it. But we'll bring you back in a second here. Okay, next there's grease Zerk right there on the wheel hub, and right there on the other wheel hub. So we'll have to get those greased. Okay, next up, here's another. This would be the last zerk on the steering that needs to be greased. So we'll get that done. Okay, so the steering is greased. Normally, you'd put a little oil in the generator here. There's a cup here and one here, but I'm going to leave that one alone, mainly because I'm planning on swapping this over to an alternator. So steering is done. There's one grease zerk up in here for greasing the clutch. Maybe you can see it in there. Let me see if I can clean it off and if it'll shine up just a little bit. Maybe you can see it up in there. I can feel it. It should be that shiny spot there. That should be for the throwout bearing. And then as far as I know, that should take care of the greasing. Normally I would change the oil in the air cleaner, but for right now, until the carburetor kit comes, we'll just leave that off. It's full of carburetor bits right now anyways. So now, because this tractor has a woods mower on it, there's a grease zerk here and one right there and one on the far spindle that all need to be greased. There's a grease zerk here and on the other side that need to be hit. So I'm going to hit those. Okay, so next up we got to check the oil in the steering box, which you check right here. And the book doesn't say anything other than to keep it full, which is somewhat unfortunate. But I don't see the oil level at all, so we're going to add some oil to it. And I suppose it'll be a little bit of a slow process here. So I'll bring you back in a minute here when that's done. Just on a side note, I'm pretty sure this is a 1940 B, and from what I can tell, this looks like the earlier steering box. There's a late one and an early one. The late one is a Ross. I don't quite remember what the name of the early one was. It starts with a G, but that doesn't matter too much. But neither one, from what I can gather, has much of a level. You're just supposed to keep it full, more or less. So that's what we'll do here. Okay, one thing I want to do here while we're lubricating everything is we're going to take and just squirt a little bit of oil down in here. You can see right down in here, it's where it moves, just to help try and keep the corrosion down a little bit. So if we can get a little bit in there, that would help with things, I would think. And I used a little bit of heavy oil just for fun. Kind of sort of on the pivot here, but we'll give this a shot of Zep, because that'll probably run into the vital areas a little better. Just to keep things lubricated. And that still doesn't seem quite full. Don't know how full is, but I'd like to just make sure that it's got a fair bit in there at least. It don't run down in there very fast, so it can't be too low. Of course, the air has to come out the same way as far as I know. So there's that. Okay, one other thing I want to do is, since this thing sat outside all winter, I'm going to... Okay, that's a better shot. And my hands are more free now. But anyways, we're going to pull this plug out of the transmission and rear end, because it sat outside all winter. And we'll make sure that there's no water in there. We'll drain out just a little bit here. That way we can flush any water out. If there's any garbage on the bottom of the transmission, that'll get somewhat at least flushed out as well. The book says that because we got hydraulics on this particular unit, that we're supposed to run a 20 weight oil in the rear end. It smells more like gear oil, but anyways, the fill, what the heck, just fell off. I'll have to figure that out in a minute. But the fill is right down here. And we'll pull that out. And it does say oil level right there. So we got to refill it to about there. And I'll bring you back in a second here when I get the funnel set up. There we go. Now in the book, if I read it correctly, it said because we got hydraulics on here, we're supposed to use 20 weight oil in the rear end. What came out smelled like 80-90, but today's flavor of oil is going to be Harvest King Trans Hydraulic. It's kind of a high tran, so if I can do this one-handed without making too much of a mess. We'll put some of this in there. Yeah, of course, I made a mess. So, hold on. I'll bring you back in a second. Okay, so there, I don't know, I suppose you can't see really, it's just a dark hole, but we got oil in there to about the bottom of the hole there, which is about where the manual says it should be. So we can put the plug back in for aiming. It can be hard to hold the camera and work at the same time. I'm sure I've mentioned that before in a video, but that plug goes there. We're still not sure if this is quite full yet, so we'll put another dab in there. And keep after it. Now, the one last thing we got to do is we got to check the final drives and see what if they got much of any oil in them or what. There's no drain plug on the bottom, so I can't drain any water out that might have got in there, but we'll pull the plugs, we'll see what comes out. If they're full beyond the plugs, well, then there's probably some water in there, but we'll figure that out here in a second. So I'll bring you back when I get that set up. Okay, I'm pretty sure you can see the right spot. There is stupid grass. There is a plug right here. And if I can get things to work the way I want. There, come on. There. Yeah, okay, good. You can see. So, we'll get that plug loose. And it's finger tight. So we'll pull that out and see if we get a dribble. That one appears to be full to the top. You can see you get a little dribble, but not a big dribble. So I would say there probably is not any water on that side. I'll check the other side. Ow. That was nice. I'll check the other side off camera. There, that should be good. And I'll report back. But that is the gist of lubricating an Allis Chalmers B. So, I'll bring you back in a minute here. Okay, so the other side seemed good too. It didn't, it wasn't overly full. The oil that come out looked halfway decent. So, that would be more or less, I guess, the long and the short of lubricating an Allis Chalmers B. So got some things to do, waiting on the carburetor kit. Got to order other parts too, but mowing season isn't quite here yet anyways. And we got plenty of other projects to work on. So, So that's where we're at for now. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found it useful.